the Shaw Auditorium for the meeting for Monday, November 14th, 2011. And we'll call the meeting to order, but before we do, I just want to make a comment that because of the pending election, this will not be streamed live by Shaw. It will be recorded and played at a later date. So there's not too much to do with the camera tonight. So if we could start off with late items, Ms. Harrison, if you could introduce them, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Add item 6A, delegations pertaining to agenda items. Mr. Jim Routledge regarding Revenue Anticipation Borrowing Bylaw 2011, number 7142. Delete item 11B, Property Maintenance Bylaw 1990, number 3704 at 250 Prideaux Street. Add attachment A and attachment B to item 12A, information only items, DP 695 at 5300 Rutherford Road. Add item 13B, reconsideration of bylaws, zoning amendment bylaw 2011, number 4500.005 for adoption.
Thank you very much. If we could get an adoption as amended.
So moved. Second.
And second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Adoption minutes.
Circulated. Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Presentations. The first presentation I have, there's two actually very deserving groups, actually. The first one is Alexander Howard and Ms. Jordan Emery, and I think they're both in attendance now. And I was going to get Councillor Unger to come along with me and do the presentation. So, Councillor Unger. And if you'd like to come down. Okay.
Oh, I see. Why not?
So, Alexandra. Hi. Just want to make sure. This is maybe, Merv, you want to make these presentations on behalf of your very long association with our St. John Ambulance. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. On February 12th of this year in Nanaimo, Jordan Emery and Alexander Howell teamed with each other and used their first aid skills to save lives. They were walking home after an evening out when they saw two men lying on the sidewalk ahead of them. As they approached, they realized that the men had suffered multiple severe stab wounds to their upper torsos and were bleeding very heavily. Without hesitation, they used their hands to apply pressure to the wounds on one casualty while the other did the same on the other casualty. They constantly talked to the casualties to prevent shock as they kept up the pressure to the wounds to control the bleeding. They continued this life-saving intervention until emergency services arrived. They are to be commended for their very quick actions and for their knowledge and the use of first aid in saving lives.
Okay, Jordan.
Yeah.
And we can maybe two, and then this is for Alexander. So, congratulations. I'm not going to take it back.
And a pin you can proudly wear that demarks St. John Ambulance and the duty you did for your community. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Now, the next presentation I have is to Marta DeSchiffert. And Marta, is Marta here? Come on down, Marta. And this is to acknowledge Marta's recent achievement in winning the 1500 steeplechase for the 2011 Legion Canadian Youth Championship. So congratulations. Well done. Now, come on now, we get a picture of you here. And you have... Okay, and turn it up, Marta, so everyone can see that one. Good for you. We'll get a picture. And Mom's going to... Try and... Do you want to do another one? Come on now. Come on now. Don't hide in the back here. Great. And before you vote, we also have a City of Nanaimo ribbon for you. So let me put this on. Da-da-da-da-da. There we go.
Oh, the running one.
Well done. Congratulations. Okay, the very next item is item 6A, delegations pertaining to agenda items up to 10 minutes. And the first delegation is Mr. Jim Routledge. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I would like an opportunity to ask a question, if I may, with respect to the proposed bylaw. The background information on page 26 under the first paragraph indicates that there is a historical perspective to this requirement of the borrowing, and it refers to the reason for it being necessary as being a short-term investment opportunities and to more effectively manage the city's cash reserves. I have trouble with that. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly that means, and I was wondering if you might be able to put a question to the staff that could give us an explanation of that, please.
Well, we could, but basically it's to cover short-term borrowing. One of the conditions of it under the Municipal Act is that the monies have to be repaid before the taxes are paid, which is July 2. But maybe, Mr. Kenny, did you want to expand on that a little?
Pass it on to Mr. Clements for
Mr.
the
Clements?
explanation.
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. This historically came about as a result of exactly what the Mayor said, which is that at some time in the past there was the requirement sometimes to borrow early in the year in anticipation of receiving tax revenues. Essentially what it is now is it's more along the lines of what we do is we have money invested, and some of the times we can't get the money out of the investments for 48 hours or 72 hours, and this would potentially give us the ability to short-term borrow for a couple of days to cover that shortfall. The reality is we've never had to use this requirement. We put the requirement in every year for $1 million, and we've not had to draw on it in the last 20 years that I know of.
Thank you, Your Honor, or, Your Worship. That being the case, I guess I do kind of wonder why it is in fact necessary to do that. If we haven't had to use it in 20 years, that we would be called upon to have it available as an insurance policy. The other component to that is the $1 million regarding the credit cards. And I've never had a circumstance in my own business environment where I've had to put up money to cover a credit card borrowing, and I'm just curious if I might get a little information about that.
Sure. This is primarily a bank requirement more than a city requirement. The bank wants that extra protection of having that amount there to protect their interest in the event that the credit card charges go up. I think the city has an extremely high credit rating, and frankly, we feel that it's not necessary, but the bank requests it, and so we oblige them in that respect.
And has anyone said no? I don't want to do that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe, Mr. Clements, do you want to put some more light onto it for us, too? You're on.
Well, I think maybe the first thing to make clear to anybody who's listening to this is this does not cost the city any money. All it is it gives us authority to use the credit card. So the banks insist that council approve the fact that we are issuing credit cards, and the total value of those credit cards might exceed at some point in time, several $100,000. In fact, we don't have that much outstanding at any given time. We actually have a credit card spend of about $1 million a year. So it's just a requirement of the bank to show that council has approved the use of credit cards for the organization.
I guess two things, Your Worship, that kind of bother me a little bit. And number one is that it doesn't cost us any money. We're here dealing with this, and that costs us money. And number two, just because a bank asks for something, does that automatically say that we have to do it?
Well, and why would we not want to? How much effort goes into preparing that?
Well, quite frankly, sir, banks have been known to compete rather aggressively for business, especially with somebody with the credit rating that the city of Nanaimo has. And I would be curious to know if, in fact, the opportunity has been given to somebody else to provide that service without this requirement.
The banking is tendered every 3 years or so, and we solicit invitations from the different banking groups and institutions and the credit unions to do this, and we provide all this information to them. So I don't think this is so much unique. I think this is something that most of the banks and financial institutions require.
Well, like I say, it begs another question. If we have to deal with this every year, like why can this not be part of the regular budgeting process? Our borrowing requirements are set, and we deal with it. This is like coming, you know, it's like my son coming to me for an extra something, and it's like, well, you know, the money is set aside once a week or once every 3 years, as you say, and this to come up as a separate item just strikes me as being a bit fiscally irresponsible. Like, where's the planning?
Well, it might strike you that way. The city's been doing this for years and years and years, 20, 30 years. I think we're into the habit of doing more than anything else, and I don't think that it's all that onerous.
Your Worship, just to add to that, the community charter actually requires that it be done annually and paid off annually. So it's part of the legislative
Provincial government, yeah.
requirements of the province.
That I can live with.
We'll let the province know you're not happy, though. That's
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Second? All in favor? Motion carries. Going into proclamations, 9A, that 2011, November 28th to 2011, December 4, is Nanaimo Search and Rescue Week in the city of Nanaimo. And we're moving down into staff reports, and then the Community Safety and Development, and the 11A, DVP 182 at 5804 Delta Circle. Staff recommendation of council directs staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 182 at 5804 Delta Circle. So moved. Second? Second, okay. Okay. Now, discussion.
No, it's something
Okay.
missed over. When we're finished with this, ask you to do something.
Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now go ahead.
What did you do at noon today?
I had lunch, actually. It was delicious.
No, but I think you declared up at the Malaspina College International Education Week.
Yeah, but that was done, I think, at a previous...
Well, I think it's...
It was done, but okay, good point. Just a reminder to people that to do it again. Yeah. It's quite inexpensive, that's right. One of the things we did, and a number of us from council were there as well, it was International Student Week this week in Nanaimo, and we were up at VIU and had a lovely international meal, actually, prepared by the chefs, and it was a great opportunity to listen to what VIU has to offer in the way of international students and the financial impact that these students have in our economy. So it was a thank you for that, Councillor Sherry, because I was remiss in not pointing out that it's something I think we should all celebrate, and it maybe gives me the opportunity to remind everyone how important VIU is as an economic generator for our community. And I think most of the staff that were there from International Studies attested to that. It was a good luncheon. Okay, we'll move into item C, 11C, structural removal order, 1639A Bowen Road, unauthorized suite in a duplex. Staff recommendation that council pursuant to sections 72 and 73 of the community charter order the owner of 1639A Bowen Road to remove the illegal suite within 30 days.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. No, we did 11A already.
That was the first one. And
That was the one I did, and then, yeah. We're into D like Delta, structure removal order, 1639B Bowen Road, unauthorized suite in a duplex. Staff recommendation of council pursuant to section 72 and 73 of the community charter, order the owner of 1639B Bowen Road to remove the illegal suite within 30 days.
Staff recommendation.
Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title, section 5.7 is requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies or illegal suites for the properties listed below. And the staff's recommendation that council by resolution instruct the manager of legislative services to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under Section 5.7 of the Community Charter. And those properties are first, 1782 Regina Way, illegal construction, finished basement to include a secondary suite, and second, 405 Nickel Street, illegal construction, altered basement to create living space and rear deck with roof. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters regarding either Regina Way or Nickel Street?
Move the prepared resolution as it relates to all the properties.
Yes, moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, toilet rebate. Staff recommendation that council direct staff to change the previously established rebate of $50 for 6-liter toilets and $75 for the dual flush 3/6-liter toilets to a single rebate of $50 for each toilet replaced to a maximum of 2 lifetime rebates per residential or commercial building.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Corporate Services, G like Golf, 2012, 2012 revenue anticipation borrowing requirements. Staff recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 2011 number 7142, which is presented under the bylaw section of the agenda.
Move receipt.
Move receipt. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Information items only. We have a report from Mr. Tucker, Director of Planning, Redevelopment Permit, DP 695 at 5300 Rutherford Road.
Move receipt.
Receipt. Second?
I want to speak to that,
Yeah,
please.
let's get it seconded first. Okay, it's on the floor. Councillor Patchy.
Councillor Meade?
Councillor Patchy, yes.
Thank
that's
you.
Gentleman on my right here.
Well, Your Worship, I have a bit of a problem with some of the stuff that appears on the staff report on page 28. The second bullet refers that beavers were not removed from the site. If they were not removed, where did they go? And we have some reports from people who have seen dead beavers. In fact, that came from the 3 ladies that came before us at a Committee of the Whole meeting on October the 21st or the 24th, I think it was. That's number one. The second one that I have a problem with is that the water surface area and depth are the same as prior to construction. Just about half an hour ago on my BlackBerry, I received 3 photographs, which in an abundantly clear way show that the water level is not the same. There's a pipe that was used to take water out of the pond that is still above the surface. I only got it half an hour ago, so it's hard to show on this one. But at this point, I think it really is important that we have a chat with the ecodynamic solution person who came and did the survey, because there's some information that doesn't jive with what we have in this report. So I would like to move at this point that we invite the environmentalists to come and explain to council what some of the concerns are.
Yeah, Ms. Harrison, any recommendation? We can refer.
I would move with this information, I would move that this item be referred back for staff for clarification. Then we don't have to get to the bylaw.
Is there a second? Okay.
Fine with that?
Okay, go ahead. Councillor Bestwick next. On this motion to refer, do you want to deal with that straight up then and then? Okay, no, we've got several other speakers too. Go ahead.
I want to talk about referral.
Councillor Bestwick, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I have similar questions and concerns as they relate to Councillor Patchy. And if the wildlife weren't removed, then I assume that they must still be there, or something happened contrary to what we understand. Also, it was in 2006 that the Environmental Services conducted the Conceptual Aquatic Development and Mitigation Plan. And so is all the information that we're making reference to on how they conducted their affairs with the clearing of this property, et cetera, is it all related to 2006 information? And how they conducted
the developer was permitted to do?
Yes, it was, because it relates to a development permit that was initially issued in 2008. This is the third development permit on this property, and they've been renewing it as they go along. So the studies, while they seem to have taken place, they were current to the application, the original application back in 2008.
Thank you. So it indicates in our report that prior to the issuance of the 3 development permits, that in 2006, the ecological site assessment was conducted and the conceptual aquatic development and mitigation plan was conducted. So throughout, from 2006 to the time that they cleared the property, this is the reports that we're referencing. It doesn't, it's irrelevant to me how many times that the DP has been reissued. What is important to me is when the ecological site assessments were done, those were done, and those are what we're making reference to back to 2006, not to anything that was more current prior to sending machinery and workers on the property.
Your Worship, what we do know is that the Ministry of Environment is, as of last week, happy with the work and satisfied with the monitoring that Ecodynamics has provided. And I think the motion is appropriate if you'd like to have a presentation from the gentleman from Ecodynamics.
I think too, Mr. Swaby, unless I'm mistaken, the province also indicated that the matter of the beavers is such they were not, to their knowledge, moved, and they certainly didn't authorize the removal of the beavers. So their whereabouts is sort of unknown at this point. Is that correct?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Tucker. They weren't planning to remove any. That's notwithstanding that they can get a permit to remove the beavers if they so desired. It's not.
I think the reason I brought that up is that people have asked about the disposition of the beavers. So I just want to point out that it's my understanding the province has indicated they did not move them, and we're assuming they're still there somewhere.
Well, as of last week, it's our understanding through the Ecodynamic Solutions that the beavers are, in fact, in the water. Whether it's all of the beavers, I'm sure the population goes up and down over time.
Go ahead. Did you have some phone?
Thank you. I wasn't quite finished.
I'm sorry.
I do concur and agree with Mr. Swaby that we should follow through with the recommendation to have the ecodynamic solution person in the ministry or whomever attend. I find it interesting that within our report, we know that the stickleback and a variety of frog species were salvaged and relocated, but we're really not clear on what really did happen to the beaver, for example. So that causes me a little bit of discern. And also, it was mentioned to us that many trees that had different species of birds with their eggs and nests and things, and confirmed that they wouldn't take those trees down, and at least they wouldn't take them down until such time as hatchings had taken place. Sounds like there was a potential violation if those things are monitored and observed. One thing that I would like to ask then is that it also says on the last bullet point that the on-site biologist provided weekly updates on the status of on-site works to both the resource management and water stewardship branches of the ministry. That being said, that I would like to see those copies of those weekly updates that were provided to the ministry or the resource management and water stewardship that were provided as it says here. So I take it by its word that they were provided on a weekly basis. So if possible, I would assume that those are readily accessible and easy to access.
Your Worship, I would suggest that Councillor Bestwick and Councillor as a whole could ask that question of the biologist when he attends. That's not information that we would have.
Yeah, I was going to mention, there is a referral motion now on the floor, and so maybe these are questions that might be better suited to the delegation when they do arrive, and if we follow through with the referral, unless there's anything pressing issues on it, and then we can ask these questions directly of them when they're here, and I think that probably would be a more suitable source of information.
Then, Your Worship, I would respectfully ask that the motion be amended to include the information that is indicated that is in this report to council as it relates to the on-site biologist provided. So we'll ask him, yes, to come and bring this information and copies for everybody, not ask him when he gets there. We'll ask him for the stickleback and a variety of frog species were salvaged and relocated into suitable ecosystems. Then I would like to have that information presented at the time of his presentation. The American bullfrogs were euthanized. That's interesting. I'd like to know how many, because it is interesting to me that we aren't sure of other aspects of the report. So I'd like this person, when we vote on this, if there's a friendly amendment, to bring this information with, as opposed to asking if these things actually happened and when they happened. I'd like this person to bring the information with him when he comes.
Ms. Harrison, do you want to?
Your Worship, I'm just wondering if I can get some clarification on the motion. We've had a couple of different motions started.
Really?
Councillor Pache started with a motion to invite the biologist from Ecodynamic Solutions to come to council, but then we had another motion that came forward, I think before we had a seconder, to refer back to staff. So I'm just a little uncertain if we did get a seconder for Councillor Pache's motion.
In
That was the original motion.
In that case, I'm quite happy with the friendly amendment from Councillor Bester.
So if we have a motion on the floor, then it would be to invite the biologist from Ecodynamic Solutions to make a presentation to council and to
Well, yes, but the thing is, we have a motion to refer that preceded that. Now, if the motion to refer includes Councillor Beswick's phrasing, that's fine.
Can't you withdraw that, or what?
But I mean, well, let's just, we're going to vote on that referral.
Well, Your Worship, if I might, I don't know that the motion that I heard was to refer this back to staff for a report. I understood Councillor Pache's motion to be to refer to staff to invite the Ecodynamic Solutions biologist to attend council and provide a report at that time, if that's accurate. That's what I understood. My friendly amendment was for this person to bring the information with and not just a Q&A as it relates to the weekly updates, as it relates to where the species were salvaged and relocated to. I am sure that that information then is easily accessible and readily available. I would like the person to bring it with them.
Any
So-
question? You look a little deer in the headlight look.
Just
there.
trying to get some clarification. If the motion if the intent was to refer this motion that was on the floor back to staff, then that one should be dealt with first.
Yes.
If the follow-up motions. So if, I just wanted to
Okay,
make
let's
sure
deal
we
with the
actually knew
referral
which
first.
motion we were referring, whether it was the report that was being referred back or a motion
Okay, well, it's
to
been
invite.
moved and seconded that referred back to staff. All those in favor?
No, wait, I've just been waiting to speak for some
Oh,
time.
okay, well, go ahead then. This is on the referral?
Yes, on the referral.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, I'm opposed to the motion to refer the report back to staff. I think it's a separate issue from whether we invite anybody to come and address council. The report itself is clear, it is comprehensive, it covers all the responsibility that we have as a city council regarding land use on this property, and it details what was done for the Ministry of the Environment. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the report, and I'm not sure why we would be wanting to refer that back to staff. The report refers to some things that the ecosystem biologist at the Ministry of the Environment confirmed. So are we questioning whether he confirmed that? Then the bullets that that council members have been focusing on are arising from a biologist that reported to the ministry and was hired by the developer. we can invite him, and I'm happy to deal with that motion, but I don't know why we're referring the report back to staff before we do this. The report's fine, in my view, and I oppose the referral.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the reason I referred the report back, because we were going to be dealing with this item under the bylaws a little later on in the agenda. Well, not under the bylaw, okay, so that's fine. But there's no problem with the staff report, but it has raised some questions that weren't covered in the report that we can only get from the ministry staff. And that's why is to send the whole thing back to the staff so that they can contact the ministry people, indicating to the ministry people that there's been questions raised here this evening that the council would like to have addressed before they proceed any further.
Any follow-up? If not?
No, my point stands. There's no point in referring it back.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Well, it's interesting whether I'm opposed or in favor of referring it back. We've heard that the 12 beavers were killed. I just looked up on the net here, and there's something that says in the net that there could have been. But more of my concern is that this has now been passed off to the Ministry of Environment for our environment checks. We eliminated a position of the environmental officer a number of years ago, I think 2005, 2006 maybe, or when was that? So my concern with this is we say that that's a provincial mandate and the province is taking care of it. I'm not that certain they have the staffing, they can get out to see these, if the ministry officer can make it out there. I mean, beavers create an amazing habitat. They are start of a reproduction of habitat. They say in 1985 and 86 is when those beavers got in there and started to create the habitat. It's been phenomenal in the 25 years or 20 plus years of what's redeveloped in there. It brought in more deer, it brings in more wildlife, more birds, everything. So I wish we had an environmental officer that could actually check up on these environmental people and the ministry that they were doing their job. And I know we took that position out because we felt it was a downloading, or council of the day thought it was a download. But this is exactly where we don't have the expertise. We really don't have an environmental planner on staff now. And so we're having to get the consultant who's, I hate to say, you know, when you've got your flag out there, you protect your flag. You know, so he's going to protect his report, right? He's going to do the best he can as a professional. He's going to stand by his report. But we don't have any expert eyes to check it anymore. And that's why I say I'm happy this is going back. I'm glad we can get the MOE to confirm and the professionals to confirm, but I wish we had someone as a professional on staff again that could look these over for us, so when we could call our guy in and say, what's going on there, get out there and look at it. And then we get our opinion too. So I don't know how we can encompass that, or if it's something else, if we can look to that. Again, I'm always talking about, you know, cuts and things, and here looking at adding position back that some people consider a download. But I believe it's protection for the city of Nanaimo. And I know the Environment Committee struggles with it too, and would really like to see that type of position put in place. So I don't know, I would love to hear what these reports are. I'd like to confirm for sure that the beavers aren't dead. I mean, it would be really nice. And there's videos that say they were there last week and then now they're gone, right? So, or weeks ago and then they were gone. So I just hope we can somehow get back to looking at having protection with the expertise of a professional with an environmental background.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Kipp has made my points, Your Worship, but if I could, through you to staff, is there not a requirement, being the development is in our own community, for the environment, the ministry people to make do some kind of reporting to our city planning department or development department when they're doing major developments in our areas that involve our ecosystems?
Your Worship, no, there's no requirement. And you could imagine, even if we had an environmental planner, if the province approved it through their process that they have, which doesn't include us, it would be a situation that would have very little impact because the approval is with the province through their system that doesn't involve us. So even if we had an environmental planner, they wouldn't be involved in the approval process.
Strange.
Okay. Is everyone,
Question on the motion.
okay, do you want to have another go at it?
Well, just on staff's point there, I understand, yeah, it's a different level of government, and they're going to do what they want to do, but if we've got someone watching, and someone with a professional opinion can tell me to say, we don't like the way this is doing, it doesn't really suit our standards in an hour, or whatever, how we'd like to see it, then I think we have the ability at that point to say, well, let's extract something more out of this, that we want more. And we do extract things. I mean, I always get in trouble about that extraction clause, but I think we can try and do that. But I guess that just supports the idea of having our own professional.
Okay, Councillor Vester, is something new, or is this?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, just as it relates to the comments from Mr. Swaby that about this out of our control and we don't have any role in the provincial government's decision-making. So for water courses, for wetlands, for setbacks, for creeks, for ponds, for destruction of wildlife habitats, for ecosystems. So did I hear you correctly that if we issue a development permit and there's water courses and wetlands and riparian setbacks and there's all these things, and the Ministry of Environment approves the developer to go in, there we have no ability to say, we'd like you to downsize this development, we'd like you to reconsider the density of this development, we'd like you to maintain the setbacks, we'd like you to retain things on the property as it becomes important to our community growing up and moving forward?
Your Worship, this is the funny situation the change in legislation that occurred has resulted in. As the provincial government actually took back their ownership of these regulations, which were previously downloaded to us, and I'm talking just about aquatic regulations, flora and fauna has never been in the cards for municipal government, to my knowledge, until the request that this council has for reviewing the beaver situation and the frogs. That's never been in the legislation for municipal governments. But taking back the legislation for aquatic issues, you can imagine what would happen if the province said, yes, we support this reduction through all the biology reports that we have, and then a council came forward later and didn't approve the development permit to relax it. It would create quite a situation of who are the experts, I guess, in this field. So sure, you could fight it at an aquatic level, dealing with the setback issue if that was part of the issue that the province was recommending. But I think that the expertise lies with the staff at the province to deal with this issue. All the professional reports are provided to the province to review and are not reviewed through the local government. So two separate issues in my mind.
Which makes all the more reason why I think we need to be conscientious about our future developments. We can't really do anything about this one, but certainly if the future developments look like what this property now looks like, I'd be ashamed of the manner in which these move forward. So I hope that we do have something to say, or we have the ability to say something about the look of the project that we're talking about and those that might look like it in the future.
Okay, Councillor Pachi.
Thank you, Worship. To staff, if I may. The very last sentence on page 28 reads, if Council wishes further information with regards to the development process, the biologist for Ecodynamic Solutions has offered to make a presentation to Council. So does that mean you've been in contact with this person and he's offered this and he's willing to come?
Yes, at Council's request, we've had extensive discussions with what they're doing on site. The project has been approved by Council, is under construction, as we all know. There's no going back at this point, but he is certainly willing to come and talk to Council about the work that he's done on site and with the Ministry of Environment.
That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Pardon me. So, question, excuse me, question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? We have, This is the motion to refer. Motion to refer to staff. Okay, so let's just start it all over again here. So those in favor of the motion to refer are Councillor Kipp, Councillor Unger, Mayor Tan, Councillor Sherry. And opposed, we have Councillor Greaves, Councillor Hold'em, Councillor Pache, and Councillor Beswick.
And Councillor Johnson.
And Councillor Johnson. So that's 5, and so the motion fails to refer.
Well, then I would move receipt of Mr. Tucker's report.
Second.
And second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Now,
So that's the end of
Now,
discussion.
now the motion.
Does that mean that I do have to make my motion again to invite the
Yes, please.
biologist to
Please do.
come to speak to us, and I'll do so herewith.
okay, and that's seconded by Councillor Johnstone. Okay. Any question on that one? Go ahead. Councillor Sherry, go ahead first.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Then you're next.
if you're not referring the report back for further information for clarification, we've accepted the report and we're onward and upward. Now you're inviting the individual back for what? Just to answer some of the questions that were there, so it's nothing to do with any further concerns that are raised with the permit? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Councillor Hold'em.
Thank you, Your Worship. Noted that last sentence in the report as well, and if Council wishes to receive a presentation from the biologist, I think that's great. I just want to point out, though, well, I want to ask just a couple of questions about the what he may be talking about. In the second paragraph on that same page 28, it refers to an ecological site assessment and the conceptual aquatic development and mitigation plan, which actually comes from his company, right? Did the ministry require those, that plan and that assessment, or did we? Were they part of the DP application, or were?
They were provided to the city as part of the development permit application, and they were also provided to Ministry of Environment.
Okay, so they were mutually requested then by both governments?
That's right.
Okay, so that certainly makes it relevant. I'm also wondering if the mover of the motion would want to invite the ecosystem biologist at the Ministry of the Environment, because he was the one who apparently looked over these documents and confirmed these points that are in bullets. And, I mean, that appears to be the responsible agency here, and I'm just wondering if the mover of the motion also wants to invite that person.
That's quite acceptable, and I would support that.
And the seconder as well? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we have Councillor Beswick again. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry for speaking again. We've agreed to receive the report for information. I don't think we sent it, so we didn't send it back to staff, and I think that that's appropriate. And I would like then to advance to invite both members of the member of the
I think
ministry and the member
that's
of
the recommendation.
the Eco-Dynamic Solutions. So I concur with Councillor Hold'em.
Okay.
And so I was supporting what he just said, so I hope that that's
Okay,
within
sure.
my purview.
Your Worship,
Yeah, go ahead.
is this a lunch and learn session on biology and biological reports, or are we bringing him to do a presentation at council?
Well, it's a good suggestion. I don't know that,
I'd prefer to have an information session.
Your Worship, as it would come to council, either in this format or at the Finance and General Government, but probably in this format, because this is where it is now and should come back.
Okay, thank you.
okay, question on the motion. Does everyone understand the motion now that, series of nods, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to, yeah, sorry, I lost my place. You were trying to shuffle through all the papers here. The reconsideration of bylaws to be moved by Councillor Greaves. Councillor Greaves.
I move that highway closure and dedication removal, portion of Old Victoria Road adjacent to 1064 Old Victoria Road, bylaw 2011, number 7135, road exchange be adopted.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And that zoning amendment bylaw 2011, number 4500.005, rezoning application 280 to amend the existing site-specific comprehensive development district zone 5, CD5, for property located at 5220 Metro Drive, be adopted.
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And do you want to go on with the introduction of bylaws, please?
That revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 2011, number 7142, to provide for the borrowing of money in anticipation of revenue passed first reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Your Worship.
Oh, Councilor Kit, go ahead.
This is just bridge financing, isn't it?
Correct.
Thank you.
If you'll pardon the pun. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead.
The revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 2011, number 7142, pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 2011, number 7142, pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move receipt of the correspondence. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, any business arising? And I think Councilor Hold'em, did you have something?
Yes, Your Worship, on letter A, concerning the national transit strategy, I would like to move that, especially because of being the transit chair out at the regional district, I would like to move that we call on the Parliament of Canada to create a national transit strategy as set out in Bill, and I'm struggling to find it. Sorry. Here it is, Bill C615.
Is there a seconder? Second, Diane? And discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And any business arising for the second one on B?
Yes, Your Worship.
Carry on.
Your Worship, I was reading over this one with interest about the pact that the mayor of Mexico City is circulating to everyone in the world, I guess. And the list on page 46 of our agenda that starts out, "We, the mayors and local authority representatives, by signing the Global Cities Covenant on Climate, the Mexico City Pact, commit to." And as I look down that list, I find that we are already committed and doing most of those things. So if it would help other communities to see the kind of commitment that we're making and that should be made across the world, I would move that we support this, what's called the Mexico City Pact as well, by motion and response to the writers, and I so move.
Is there a seconder for that item? I see, Councillor Sherry, did you have one to discuss on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I could see us writing a letter to the individual telling them that this community is already fulfilling its obligation to this thing. We also had a delegation this evening pertaining to costs of doing local government. Now we start getting involved into something as this worldwide pact. What's there to say that you're not going to receive another request either for support and funding or further legislation which could run into additional costs for the community? So I'm in for the price of a stamp, but I'm not in the price of for a document.
Councillor Hold'em.
Yeah, I think that's a good caution from Councillor Sherry. Just to ask if anyone on staff has looked over this and see if we're actually making any commitments beyond what we're already doing by supporting this pact.
Mr. Kinney.
Your Worship, it's a bit unsure. I certainly agree that the first 1, 2, 3, 4 are things that we're already doing. When you get into 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which involve kind of spreading the gospel and funding secretariats, I think you're getting into a bit of a gray area in terms of how much time commitment. But I agree that the first 4 are certainly things we're doing anyway. The remaining ones are lobbying, which really are political issues, and really is up to how forthright council wants to be in pursuing the environmental agenda.
Okay, well, with that advice, Your Worship, if you would permit me, I'd like to change the motion more along the lines Councillor Sherry is saying, and that we write a letter to the mayor of Mexico City and the agency that he's representing, expressing our support for their efforts.
And Councillor Dunn, you're going to, yes, agree to that change? Okay. Now, Councillor Patchy.
Worship, just to comment on that, we as a city are already mandated to reduce our greenhouse gases by 33% of the 2007 levels by 2020. So it's only 9 short years away. And I don't know when's the last time you were in Mexico City, but I tell you, I think the mayor of Mexico City should look after his own place first before he's asking us to do stuff again.
Okay, so question, all those in favor? Opposed? 64 cents is too much money. So sorry, let's just try that again. All those in favor, we have Councillor Oldham, Councillor Cherry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and opposed, we have the Kingston trio at the end here. We have Councillor Unger, Councillor Kipp, and Councillor Greaves, and Councillor Patchy. So the motion passes. You agree with that? Ms. Harrison, you're good in the nod, okay. So we're moving down into delegations pertaining to items not on the agenda, and we have Mr. Neil Reid, 4592 Sheraton Ridge Road, Nanaimo, regarding a secondary suite at that same address, 4592 Sheraton Road. Welcome, sir. You have up to 10 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, gentlemen, you have to bear with me. I'm not that familiar with being in front of a city council. But I did put in, I have students staying with me there, international students, and apparently there's a complaint filed with the city on that, and the inspector came around, and I had done upgrade work on it. I had put in some plumbing, a sink, and I put in wiring for a stove. Now I'd like the council to view this as a homestay rather than a suite. They do have access to my upstairs. And actually, the engineering department has given me an option of doing some upgrade on it to be recognized as a legal unit. So
okay,
in short, that's my presentation. I should say also that I moved here 4 years ago, and since that time, the economic situation has turned down considerably. And I guess I need the money, really. You know, it wasn't my dream to come here and rent rooms. So, you know, this is what it's about. So I was asking your consideration. In this.
Okay, just a question. You have 2 suites in your site now, or do you have more than that?
I have the one legal suite, and then I'm using the family room as renting out the rooms there to 2 students right now from Korea.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's non-conforming, so that basically is an illegal suite, the second one. The staff has explained that to you already, I'm sure. Maybe before we've got a list of speakers, but could we get any clarification from staff on the suggestion from the delegation that he can make some changes? This is news to me.
Your Worship, the zoning bylaw allows a house with a secondary suite only. This house has 2 secondary suites as well as the principal residence, therefore the 3rd suite is not permitted and could not be legalized through city bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Is referring to is the copy of the letter on page 56 and 57, which was written by city staff, which explains in intricate detail what Mr. Reid could do to remove the suite. And maybe that's what Mr. Reid's referring to when he talks about the connecting the main part of the house with the suite.
Okay, and if he complied with that, then
well, that would effectively remove the suite, and that's what we're asking for.
Are you familiar with that, Mr. Reid? Or you know what the staff is referring to?
Well, I have some idea, but I do challenge it, and are bylaw people required to have a warrant to enter a house?
Well, I don't know if we want to get into this thing. I think we're trying to deal with whether you've got a legal and an illegal suite, and let's try to stay on this issue right now, sir, if we can.
I feel that there's nothing unlawful or illegal in my house, and that everything is done by tradesmen that are familiar with the city
But
inspectors.
it's not consistent with the bylaws that exist in the city of Nanaimo. That's
Well,
the
I just
issue.
don't recognize the bylaws as...
Well, that's your choice, of course.
And I was
Anyway.
also should add that I was threatened by city engineer that if I stood in the way, I would be shoved aside or I would be shoved down.
Okay, well, these
That
are
was a
allegations, sir.
threat.
We're not really able to hear those things. Do we want to just run through? We've got several people who have some questions for you, sir, so let's start off with Councillor Johnstone.
Just briefly, Your Worship, you referenced the Korean students as you'd prefer that they were called homestay students rather than actual tenants in your home?
Yes, I would.
Through you then, sir, to staff, I don't believe that homestay students are allowed the privilege or have the privilege of providing their own meals. They're strictly living in your home, and you become the family for those students, and you prepare their meals and treat them as a member of your family.
Mhm.
So there's no kitchen facilities in homestay students, to my knowledge, sir. You would
Yes.
provide them the meals.
Is that a law?
Well, I think that's what homestay students do. They stay in your home. And
But is that a law?
I'm just
Well,
asking.
Well, then I'd have to see it.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go.
Everybody's in my house. Everybody that's in my house is there at my pleasure.
Well,
okay?
Okay.
The only people in Alofi were city inspectors who walked in. I had 2 students there that had no knowledge of English, or very little. Now, right now, I heard it touted that we want to promote international students. Now, these students left the next month because they're threatened. They don't understand English that well, but they know illegal. In China, to live together, it's illegal, and they can be evicted from the university. So this is their impression of the Nine Land and our laws. Now, cooking meals, I think, for them is a little bit silly, as they wish to cook it themselves.
Mhm.
I don't know how to cook Korean food.
Okay, well, we've got some more questions. Councillor Veswick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question. How many students do you have living in your premises?
2.
2.
Mm.
So you have your home with a suite, a legal suite,
Mm.
and...
Well, she's a student as well.
I'm sorry?
She's a student as well.
So how many people live in your home?
My house, 4. It's a 3,500 square foot house.
And your legal suite includes the 4, or just the home?
Just the
4?
2 girls and myself.
2 girls and yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3.
Yes.
You just said 4.
There's a legal suite. I don't include them. I include the 2 girls as part of the main house where I live.
Okay, and so there's 4 students and yourself, is that correct?
1 student in the legal suite, 2 students living in the main house with me.
So 3 students and yourself?
Yes.
In the illegal suite?
No, I just told that to you. I said there's 1 student in the legal suite, 2 other students living with me in the main house. Now, this is an alleged illegal suite. It hasn't
Okay,
been proven.
so believe it or not, I'm trying to...
Well, I've just explained it. I don't know how many ways I can explain it to you.
Well, you're going to have to explain it again, because I don't understand you.
Okay.
So just
I
let
don't
me
understand
finish.
you. No,
Fine.
I got 1 legal suite.
So let me finish.
There's 1 person in that suite, a
I've
girl,
heard
and
your
then I have the
explanation.
main house.
Okay, I've got
that's
your
me.
explanation, thanks. So question to staff, how many unrelated people are permitted to live in a home with a suite? So I understand it, no, I may be wrong, clearly I'm misunderstanding, but I understand it to be 5. Is that or is that not correct?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Bestwick, the number of persons is somewhat irrelevant. What is important is that we deal with the safety issues associated with a suite constructed without a building permit. And if we can rectify that, then the applicant can carry on with having homestay students if that's what he wishes to have within his own house.
Okay, so may I, Your Worship? So that part I get. I understand the illegalities that have been identified, number 1 and number 2, with a frame and a door and the 220 in the sink. I get that. And that's illegal and that has to be corrected. My question is, if it was a house and the legal suite, how many people are permitted non-related? And I heard you say that related or non-related is irrelevant, but from my understanding, a homeowner can have up to 5 non-related people living under their roof. And so that is my question. Is that or is that not what the bylaws state?
Your Worship, Councillor Beswick's referring to some case law that talks about 5 unrelated people can live together in a house, and that is correct, under one single-family residential house. That is not including the secondary suite that would be legal, if there is one that is legal, and the number of people that live in that would be separate from the 5 unrelated people.
Thank you. That answers my question, and I trust that it might answer some of yours.
Oh, thanks very much.
Fix up number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question was related to Councillor Johnston's. I just wanted to confirm that homestay students or students that are billeted for a semester or less at a time become part of the family. There's no regulations regarding those students. I've had them in my home as well. It has nothing to do with secondary suites, however. There's a common kitchen. Sometimes they make their own meals. Sometimes I made them for them, or my wife did. They come and stay with you. That's the case, right? I mean, there's nothing that would prevent, in any of our bylaws, 2 or 3 students staying in the same house with you, whether you've got a secondary suite or not. So, the only question is whether you have a secondary suite and whether it's legal or not. That's why the officers have to come on the property to determine that.
Well, how do they determine that? Do they have a copy of the lease?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's a structural issue, and they need to look at the house.
Well, they like to cook their own food. How about that?
It has nothing to do with it, sir.
It has everything to do with it. I put it in the kitchen because they like to cook themselves.
Good point. Let's move
Okay,
along.
you've already said you don't subscribe to the bylaws of the city, so it hardly matters, does it?
Councillor Sherry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you have one suite that has been inspected and is legal. Is that correct?
I bought the house with a legal suite.
Well, I'm just asking that the house that you bought has one suite that is a legal suite.
I just answered it. I said I bought a house with a legal suite.
Yes or no?
Well, I just answered. I said I bought a house with a legal suite. So that answers the affirmative.
Sir, I can confirm that the agent might have told you that it was a legal suite, but it's not necessarily true, okay? Because they need to be inspected for the safety of not only yourself, the tenant, and the community as a whole, okay? That's the most important thing. You, by the sounds of it, you've taken it upon yourself to put in a range or a 220 service for cooking in other parts of your house. Was that inspected?
Ask the inspector.
I'm asking you, sir.
We've already gone over this, so yes, of course,
Are-
it's been inspected. But I also say,
who-
this is
who-
an
who-
alleged
who-
suite.
who
There's
inspected
alleged
it?
suite. I demand to see
Okay,
a
now-
copy of this lease.
No,
Answer the
look,
question,
look.
please, or
we're,
this
we're
is
trying
over.
to be fair with you, okay? Was that inspected by an electrical inspector?
No.
Okay, so that's a safety aspect right off the bat
Okay.
that needs to be done. Okay, when the rules and regulations of the community say that you're only allowed one secondary suite in your dwelling, okay, that applies to everybody. Not because I need some money, I'm going to put in another one so that I can meet my means, okay? So that's, and what we have done, and I'll treat everybody fairly and equally, from one neighborhood to the other neighborhood, okay? In the past, when we've had removal of suites, the requirement is to remove that 220-volt service right back to the box, not just at the junction box that might be coming out of the wall, but right back to the service, okay? And that. Then you can invite your stay-at-home students upstairs to utilize your cooking facilities upstairs, okay? So that you only have 2 units. Now, if you haven't had the inspection for the electrical, have you also had the inspection of their sleeping accommodations, and should there be a need to get out of the house in a hurry with a fire or something like that? Has that passed inspection? Okay,
I just want to
and
bring something else here.
those are the safety things that the community needs to inspect in order not only to protect yourself, your tenants, and the community as whole. Because if we don't do anything with you and say, oh, okay, well, that's fine, we'll just let them go ahead, and anything
Please, sir, if I
happens.
make a point, you know, I understand where you're going. So this applies to the common good of the people of Nanaimo, for everybody. Does this apply to South Nanaimo?
We haven't just picked on you.
I see houses with crumbling foundations and wiring was put in the 1920s. Does this apply to them?
Yes.
It does. Are you sure?
Yeah, well, look, we're not into a debate here, sir. Do you have any more
With
points you want to
respect,
make?
come on.
Any upgrading or...
Councillor, just a sec. Councillor Kipp is next.
Yeah, how I'd like to explain this is it's interesting. The worst case scenario is when someone puts something into their house, if they don't go through the legal channels, a property journeyman, an electrician with a certification, inspections, then liability can come forward to the city. So when you bring up an old house in the south end, we only have to, with an old house, prove that it was an older house and it would be built to the standard of the day. Anything new added to that house has to come to today's standards. So I have an old 1947 house. When I put an addition on it, the addition is done to the current code of the time that I apply. It doesn't affect my old house. My old house can stay the same. Anybody that wants to do that, though, is going to update their old house. Where we run into a problem is the lowest common denominator. You have a couple of options with this. Because our zoning across the whole community for a single-family residential lot, you can have a house, and you can have legally now, in most of our residential single-family, up to a 968 square foot, 2-bedroom maximum legal suite. You have a legal suite in your house. You have your house and your legal suite. The problem is you've made it a 3-plex by design, and that's not legal in that area. You could make an application for a complete rezoning, but there's no guarantee. Everyone has the ability to ask for something, but there's no guarantee. So for this, the problem is the rest of the community is told you're allowed one house with a fridge and stove and kitchen, and a secondary suite with a stove, and it should have separate washer and dryer and things too. So the third stove is what makes it illegal. And it was done without any application or permit. So the city can't verify that it's safe. They can't verify that it was done to code. They can't see behind the gyprock to see if the wiring was done poorly. So it becomes an issue of liability for the whole community. And that's why the rules are pretty standard, that you've been asked to either remove that heater or the wire, like Councillor Sherry said, take it out and right back to the box, right through the whole wall and tear that out. And then join your upper floor and the lower floor as one unit, taking out any locking doors or anything. So then you would be conforming to the current bylaws and code.
If the wiring's up to code, would it be legal?
No, because then under that zoning, like I said, I believe you could apply for a rezoning application. Am I correct on that, if I can go to staff? but I'm not certain it would make it. From what I understand of your design and your building, I'm not certain it would satisfy the code requirements for a threeplex.
Your worship, that's probably the greater point, is whether council would entertain a rezoning for a triplex in the future is one issue, but the building code issues for a triplex are vastly different than for a secondary suite, and it would basically require it be torn down and rebuilt
Well,
anyway.
sprinkling and a whole bunch of other stuff, fire separations, separate heating systems, so it's, what it is now is we go to the lowest common denominator and try and get people to put things in within the code and the rules, and from what I understand here, Mr. Reid, is that you haven't met the rules of the city.
Well, I have to challenge the city on that.
Sure, you can.
Yeah.
I think just a question to staff, the delegation, Mr. Reid, was advised of all these issues beforehand. I assume staff went over the options that he had, and so this isn't new tonight. He's well aware of what his requirements were.
Your worship, as best we could communicate with the applicant was actually refusing to deal with us on this and wanted to deal directly with council. So this is as much information as we know is what he's told council tonight.
Okay.
That's not completely true.
Move we receive of the delegation.
Seconder? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're now moving into question period. These are agenda items only.
My name is Fred Taylor of 204 Emery Way.
You want to wait? You want to see?
Yeah, sure.
My question to council is, why are you being unfair to this gentleman? And the reason I ask that is, your director of planning, Mr. Swaby, took an illegal suite in the house next door to me and called the Wiarton Kitcheneering a summer kitchen and allowed it all to stay and tore up the building permit to correct it. So why are we being unfair to this gentleman? He has a summer kitchen with a couple of students in it, and you've allowed it in the house next door to me that has a second family that uses a basement door steady, and yet it's called a summer kitchen to allow it against Fred Taylor's complaint. That's how Mr. Swaby operates.
Okay, just wait one. Go ahead.
Mr. Taylor, I understand that one in your area was, again, related to the covenant in your area, if I can, and I believe what's...
It wasn't related to the covenant. It was a complaint about a possible suite in the basement, and not relation. If it was proven by the city or accepted as a secondary suite, then the building scheme might play a role. But before the building scheme was ever entertained or anything on that property,
I remember the
it was
definition of
before
summer
this
kitchen.
council 1 year ago with a full pictures and all that there's a suite in the basement. And they went and said, hey, that's my mom and dad in that basement, less than 5 people. So call it a summer kitchen and get out of my house. So that's what Mr. Swaby did. Call it a summer kitchen. Now you can do it for this person right here.
Just a sec. Bishop, this has nothing to do with Mr. Swaby. This is the fact that this...
It's his actions of
Okay,
calling
Mr.
something in
Taylor,
our
you
house a
listen.
summer kitchen.
Mr. Taylor, you're finished, are you? You made your point? Thank you, sir.
Move we receive of the delegation.
Okay, anyone else that would like to speak to matters related to the agenda items only?
Move we adjourn.
Second? Second. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.